Good evening, I'm Jim Carter.
And I'm Sarah Clark. We're at Orchestra Hall in Chicago, home of the world-renowned Chicago Symphony.
Tonight, Roundabout U Special Edition presents the Murray State University Symphony Orchestra in concert at Orchestra Hall. The MSU Symphony Orchestra has appeared at Carnegie Hall in New York, the Kennedy Center in Washington, and now Orchestra Hall in Chicago. Now let's join the MSU Symphony Orchestra for their first selection.
We opened tonight's concert with the Roman Carnival Overture by Hector Berlioz. Berlioz, around 1838, I think it was, something like that, he had won the Grand Prix de Rome, which is a composition prize. And for that, it's to encourage composers to write. You have to, in accepting the award, you have to spend a year abroad. And in this case, the assignment was Italy. And he sort of balked at that, being French. But finally, he was persuaded to go to Italy. And what turned out was he fell in love with the people, he fell in love with the country, he fell in love with the folk traditions. And so he ended up writing 2 operas. The second one, Benvenuto Cellini, was a terrible disaster. The musicians thought the parts were too hard. The vocalists thought the parts were too hard. The musical director thought everything was just awful, and it just had a terrible run. And I think it only ran for 8 performances or something like that. And like a true workman, Berlioz saw some great potential still in the music, and so he extracted some tunes from the opera and built an overture with it. And so that's how we got Roman Carnival Overture, and I'm very grateful he did, because it's one of the standards in the literature.
We're here on the terrace of Historical Orchestra Hall in Chicago.
Listed on the National Register of Historic Places, Orchestra Hall is home of the world-famous Chicago Symphony Orchestra.
Orchestra Hall, part of the Chicago Symphony Center, was designed by renowned Chicago architect Daniel Burnham. Construction began in early 1904 with the inaugural concert on December 14th of that same year. The building has Theodore Thomas Orchestra Hall inscribed in its facade after the orchestra's first music director.
This is just a famed venue, and of course, as we were coming over to Symphony Center tonight, it just really kind of dawned on me the magnitude of what was taking place for the MSU Symphony Orchestra. So whenever you have an invitation to an event at this type of location, it really is a signal that you've made it, if you will, in terms of the level of performance and notoriety that's been achieved. So I was just tremendously proud of all of our student musicians, and glad for us to be able to carry the Murray State banner here in Chicago, particularly at this historic location.
The names Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, Schubert, and Wagner are also inscribed on the facade above the ballroom windows. Over the years, Orchestra Hall was also used as a movie theater to maintain income during the summer months, and a lecture hall featuring the likes of magician Harry Houdini, explorer Richard E. Byrd, aviator Amelia Earhart, and actor Orson Welles. But true to its roots, it remains best known as the home of the world-famous Chicago Symphony Orchestra.
It was so tall, and it was just such a vast hall. It was really incredible being up there tonight.
It was incredible. You know, I was concertmaster, so I got the privilege of taking my own walk onto the stage, which was amazing. You know, you walk in and you just look, and I mean, it takes your breath away because it's such a beautiful hall.
In 1978, Symphony Center was placed on the National Register of Historic Places, and in 1994, designated as a National Historic Landmark. It is truly a beautiful, grand old building. Architecture, straight-up seating design, acoustics, there really isn't a bad seat in the house.
Orchestra Hall is one of the oldest halls in the United States, and home to the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, which is also one of the oldest orchestras, professional, in the United States. So it has a reputation on an equal with Carnegie Hall and the Kennedy Center and those. And what we found out in rehearsing this week and performing tonight was that it is the equal. It is just a fabulous hall. Actually, it has probably a bit more warmth to it. The audience is closer than some of the other halls, and so you feel a real strong interaction with the audience while you're playing.
Orchestra Hall is arguably one of the finest venues, not only in the United States, but also around the world. There's a lot of people that have had the opportunity to perform at Carnegie Hall and the Kennedy Center and Walt Disney Concert Hall, Sydney Opera House, venues that have extraordinary acoustics. But every time they play at Orchestra Hall, there's always a memory that lasts with them because the acoustics are that fantastic. So this is not a regular venue. This is a real privilege for us to be here hosting the event and for Murray State to be performing.
The names on the wall, Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, and the rest, are matched by those who have performed on the stage. Yo-Yo Ma, Pinchas Zuckerman, Mitsuko Uchida, and now the Murray State University Symphony Orchestra.
The second piece is written by American composer Aaron Copland. Around 1954, Life magazine commissioned him to write a piece, and he did for piano, and it was supposed to be a piano piece that young musicians could tackle. And the piece was such a success that he later decided that he would score it for orchestra, and he later scored it for band as well. And so the piece was titled after he wrote it. He was thinking about the piece and listening to the piece after he wrote it, which is somewhat unusual for composers, but he felt like it had some plaintive qualities to it, and he titled it Down a Country Lane.
As you know, Sarah, the Murray State University Symphony Orchestra has evolved from an accomplished chamber orchestra to a full symphonic ensemble, performing the finest orchestral literature in their repertoire.
That's right, Jim, and the quality of this symphonic ensemble has led to a partnership with World Projects, an international festival organization dedicated to music education throughout the world.
I've performed with the three major ensembles here on campus: wind ensemble, concert choir, orchestra, in different halls. Freshman year I performed at the Kennedy Center with the wind ensemble. Sophomore year I performed with the concert choir at Carnegie Hall, and this year I performed at Chicago Symphony Hall with the orchestra. So it's amazing to see what kind of things Murray State, the music department, can do for us.
The Murray State University Symphony Orchestra has achieved an enviable reputation for its inclusionary role in recruiting and embracing talented musicians from the student body, faculty, and community. The orchestra is conducted by Maestro Dennis Johnson, Director of Bands and Orchestras and Professor of Music at Murray State. A native of Michigan and past president of the World Association for Symphonic Bands and Ensembles, Professor Johnson has traveled the world as a guest conductor, clinician, and adjudicator of musicians and their music.
Dennis Johnson is a wonderful music educator as well as conductor. He knows exactly what he wants from his ensembles, and he thinks of new and creative ways to get the sound that he wants, and he really helps us get to a performance level and inspires us to do the best that we can do.
Dennis has become a dear friend of mine, to be honest with you. He's past president of WASB, the World Association of Symphonic Wind Bands and Ensembles, and I met him in Singapore in 2005, actually, and we started talking about his program at Murray State, and he started asking me about my visions and what I wanted to see in the world of music education, and we realised that we had very, very similar interests, and we became long-standing true friends. Both my husband and myself, and Randy and Dennis are great, great friends.
Dennis Johnson's leadership of the Murray State Orchestra program has resulted in prestigious appearances in New York, Washington, and overseas, always teaching, always counseling, always striving to make what's great even greater.
I think the orchestra here at Murray State is a work in progress. There aren't many string programs in our area, so it's always very difficult to find the strings and have them come to Murray State. So we've involved a lot of help with some of the more talented high school students in the area to fill out the string section. And then, of course, the winds and percussion. And we try to perform a variety of literature. I know Sujeen Park, who works tirelessly with the string program, gives them a lot of experiences by themselves in different string orchestra settings, and then we put the winds and percussion together and form the complete orchestra. It's a great experience. I love it. I mean, I'm not a frustrated orchestra person doing wind ensemble or vice versa. I enjoy both groups.
The reputation of the MSU Symphony is one of the reasons the orchestra received an invitation to perform here in Chicago's Orchestra Hall. Another reason is MSU's partnership with World Projects, an international festival organization dedicated to music education worldwide.
Well, World Projects is a company that actually was formed in 1984 by Bill and Bob Lutt, who are former music educators. They started the company as a means to bring groups from around the world together, performing groups from around the world together, to actually have cultural exchange and exposure to wonderful concert halls around the United States and around the world. So it actually started off with just one festival, which was in Hawaii at the Pacific Basin Music Festival. And from there, it actually grew to a company now based in California that has over 10 festivals that we produce in the United States every year, plus around the world.
Around the world means just that. With World Projects participating in the Pacific Basin Music Festival in Hawaii, the Australian International Music Festival at the Sydney Opera House, the Mid-Europe Festival in Austria, and the London Celebration in the United Kingdom.
We started organising this 2 years ago. We normally start a new event every 2 or 3 years, and we always look for a great venue. When we found Orchestra Hall and realised that it was Chicago's finest, not to mention the country's, we thought we're going to actually start working toward a great event, which is when we headhunted the Murray State Symphony Orchestra to be a part of our first year.
Playing at Orchestra Hall here at the Symphony Center is something these students will never forget. They themselves know of great performances performances that have been held here, historic performances actually, and to have the opportunity to sit on that same stage with some of the great musicians and conductors who have come through here is just really a phenomenal thing in their lives as musicians certainly, but just generally, and they never will forget it. And to be able to provide that opportunity for our students at Murray State is something that I'm glad we're able to do.
The last piece is Les Préludes by Franz Liszt, and Franz Liszt is most famous for a type of composition called a symphonic poem or tone poem. And it's a musical work that relates to a historical event or a poem, something that creates in them just sort of a feeling, a musical picture, if you will. And Franz Liszt became the creator of that art form and wrote, I think, 13 symphonic poems, and Les Préludes is probably the most popular.
Tonight, Sarah and I have been honored to host the Murray State University Symphony Orchestra. And Sarah, what a great evening it's been.
It has been a great night, Jim. The music, the audience, but no one is more proud than the performers themselves, our students.
It was such a thrill to be able to perform on a stage where so many of my musical idols have performed, and that's just what I was thinking about while I was up there.
Hearing the resonance and knowing I was sitting on stage, those other elite musicians that sit on that stage was remarkable.
It was fantastic. I just had the thrill of loving just being on stage.
It was so amazing.
Getting on this stage is, so huge and beautiful. It's different sound, it's different feeling. It's really awesome.
On behalf of Murray State University, thank you for joining us on this special Roundabout U edition. From Chicago, I'm Sarah Clark.
And I'm Jim Carter. Good night from Orchestra Hall.